click this. Hello, this is Cynthia Mazzaferro with Powerful Beyond Measure, and I'm excited to bring to you another author who is fabulous, and his book is amazing. So let me tell you a little bit about J.L. Callison. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
Hello, I am blessed.
Great. Well, J.L. Callison is a graduate of Bob Jones University, has had a diverse, wide-ranging career in sales, management, recycling, and transportation. Youth work is one of his greatest passion, and he regularly speaks to teens. He's an avid reader, and he particularly enjoys military history and American history. So we're going to learn a little bit about his book, and it's amazing. And so with that, let's start with that right now. Jerry, tell us about your book and how you came up with this idea.
Well, Stranded at Romson's Lodge came to me back in the 80s, back when the coming-of-age stories were real popular, like Blue Lagoon, a number of others at the time. I can't remember all the names now. But my thought was, what would happen if a couple of Christian kids were put in that context, where they were stranded away from everybody else? Nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody knew, anything about them. And they could do whatever they wanted, and nobody would catch them. Would they be able to withstand temptation? So I started thinking of the concept, way back then, and just about 4.5 years ago, when I got sick, I started to have time to write, and I sat down and just started writing, and Stranded is what came out.
And it's amazing. So is there an underlying message, a special message that you want the readers to take away?
Well, yes, there is. Number one, I wanted it to be an enjoyable read. I didn't want to be preachy. I can do that if somebody wants, but being a good Baptist, I have to take an offering. So I didn't want to be preachy in this. I wanted to tell a good story that kids and adults would relate to, because this isn't just a kid thing. The concept is something that crosses over in so many other areas of life. So I wanted to just demonstrate what I believe Christianity ought to be, and do it in a winsome way that's fun. So I wrote the story to demonstrate a couple of kids put in a very trying situation that had to determine at the very beginning how they were going to handle things and how they were going to deal with life, and then take it from there.
And that's what I like, because it really can resonate with every one of our lives. We have different struggles and conflicts, and how do we have to make those decisions? How do we actually handle them? And that's really what we get to choose, how to respond in a Christian way or an angry way. What is our choice? So what are some of the struggles and conflicts that occur within your story?
Well, to start with, they are kidnapped. They are returning from a senior class trip. They're in a private school, and they're returning from a senior class trip to Europe. They've been gone for 10 days. They get flown from there up to upstate Maine, which is the most remote area in the continental U.S., less than one person per 100 square miles.
Wow.
They get dropped off at a hunting lodge that's 35 miles from the closest lodge, and Jed doesn't know where it is. It's 50 miles from the closest town, and he doesn't know how to find it either. There are no roads. They're just out in the middle of the wilderness, swamp, marsh, lakes and streams all over, and a couple of small mountains in the area. So he knows that their best hope is to stay there. Well, when they get dropped there, I forgot to tell you that the kidnapper drops them at the lodge, but he hits a goose on takeoff and crashes, which them stranded at Romson's Lodge. And so that's where the beginning of the struggle comes in, because he knows that they have to be able to survive. He's going to have to learn and do everything that he possibly knows. He knows a little bit about woodcraft. His parents run a survival equipment company, but he knows that he has to be able to take all that he has learned and put it into practice, because number one, they have to have food. But another thing that people don't think about when somebody's in a position like that, what are they going to do for clothes? So he has to come up with something that they can use for clothing, and he makes buckskin. but it tells, all of the situations, how they get into that. And along with that, he's saddled with a young lady that she's a very nice young lady, but she has never been away from home. Her mother passed away 3 years before, and it's just her and her dad. She's extremely homesick. She's never been away from electricity, has no idea how to live without running water, electricity, or any of the comforts that we have. And she has to learn how to cook on a wood stove. She has to learn how to deal with all of the things that are required just to survive.
Right.
And Jed has to teach her all of this. He has to be patient with her, even though she tends at the beginning to be a little bit homesick and crying. But they deal with it. They work through those problems, and then they work through the problems of just everyday survival in wilderness, living much as our ancestors did 200 years ago or 150 years ago, when much of the U.S. was not settled.
Right.
And
I'm going to stop you there, Jerry, because I think this is what's so fascinating too, is that, life puts us in different circumstances. We get stuck, and a lot of times we have to use our resources from our past, our knowledge, our perseverance, the thrill to survive, the need to survive, the elemental need, food, water, shelter, and actually having companionship, having that person, even though that person might not be pulling his or her weight initially, they're very integral in the ultimate results in that survival. And, so it's a very powerful story, and I don't want to give too much away. So let me ask you, what part, it could be anywhere in the book, the novel, do you find is your favorite part, and why?
Actually, my favorite part doesn't even involve Jed and Lizzie.
Oh.
My favorite part involves her dad, who has a panic attack when he realizes he's lost his only daughter. He ends up in the hospital where he is treated by a nurse who happened to be the main surgical nurse and the anesthesiologist when he was wounded in Vietnam. And they hadn't seen each other since that time. Well, her son had been kidnapped by her ex-husband, so she's able to help him deal with the loss. And the two of them kind of sparks fly. But they take a weekend and go to a club that is made up of former Marines, primarily, a few others, but guys that had fought together in Vietnam when they came back and were rejected by the VFW and American Legion, and other groups. They banded together and formed their own support group. And he takes her there, and just that setup, that was my favorite part, because military is very close to me. I don't know if you can see the pin here on my lapel. It's a Marine Corps pin, says "Proud Dad" of U.S. Marines, and I'm proud of my sons that served in the Corps, and I wanted to honor our military and our veterans. And so that I put that into the book. That's my favorite part.
That's great.
I can't say there's anything I didn't like, but
I'm sure. So, and we want to thank all those that are serving for the United States and our safety, and those that other allies that we also are there to help support them and their freedoms as well. So another question, I'd love to ask a different question. So if you had to pick any character in your book, who best represents you?
Best represents me. I don't know. I didn't model any of them after me. All of my characters in my book are they're somewhat patterned after people that I have known in my life. Either that or a composite of a couple of them. Jed is modeled after a young man that I knew many, many years ago. And Elizabeth, or Lizzie, is modeled after a young lady that I knew many years ago. And, they're changed, but the basic dynamic of their personality is there. Charles is, he's very much patterned after another guy that I know, retired Marine, who was very badly wounded in Vietnam. And I used him as the basis for that. But as far as picking somebody that represents me, I really can't. There's a
Okay.
little bit of me in any of them, but no, I didn't. It's not semi-biographical at all.
I appreciate that. But a lot of times we take people in our lives, and you just shared the three other characters and how they were represented in people that you knew of in your life. So, because often it's our stories that we walk and we hear of people we know, whether it's ourselves or someone else, we usually use that, incorporate them into our book. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
So what is your process of writing this story?
Process on this one was a little bit different. There are two different types of writers. There's the plotter and there's the pantser. Well, I am far from a plotter. A plotter is one who has an outline and follows it and has everything planned out ahead of time. I didn't do that. I started out, I had, and the basic principle that I use in writing is I start with a what if. And I started with the what if we get two Christian kids that are stranded like this, what are they going to do? And then you go to the what then, and after the what then, you have to decide what happens next and what logically goes along in the process. And then the who cares. And the who cares is not, what we would normally think as far as our reader. The reader didn't enter into this, but who cares about what happens to Jed and Lizzie? Who cares about the police department who have no clues, that are looking and searching? Who cares about Charles, who has lost his wife just 3 years ago and now has lost his only daughter? Who cares? And how does that? So I took those three principles and then just started the story. I had the beginning. I knew that they were going to be kidnapped. I knew they were going to be stranded in Maine. I had a couple of waypoints. I'm not going to tell what they are.
Okay.
And I had the ending. And if you want to know the final line, which I actually had before I started writing, if you want to know that, you got to read the book.
Oh, wonderful. Well, why don't you show everyone a copy of your book?
Yeah. This is it. The cover design is by a good friend of mine here in Oswego, Illinois, Kurt Schoenfelder. He did an awesome job picking this up just from the description I gave him. This was his first try. We didn't change a thing.
I love it. I love you almost don't even see the airplane in it. You see the two characters, and then all of a sudden, as I'm looking at it on the screen here, I immediately see the plane. So it really is a wonderfully illustration of what really happens and the parts to the story. It's fabulous. So I know you're so dedicated and really committed to teens, but I really believe that this book is really for any age, and you did kind of allude to that initially as well.
Well, the youngest reader I know was 10 years of age. Now, he's an advanced reader. It's a little bit tough for a 10-year-old, but he did it. And the eldest was 88 that I know of, and she and her daughter fought over the book. They kept two bookmarks in it. If one of them laid it down, the other one grabbed it, and until they both got it done. And both of them really enjoyed it. So I've got a wide range of people that are interested. It's in the YA market, but it's written on a wide-ranging interest level. So I had to categorize it someplace. I didn't want to put it in adult literature because I felt it didn't really fit there. So it's kind of, it fits anything.
I think it does, yeah.
Because
we all have struggles in our life, and you can bring the military part in, you can bring in the Boy Scouts,
right.
Survival in the in an area that you're unfamiliar with. I mean, it's just so many things you can take away from the book. And then it's an enjoyable read. It's not like it's a, a how-to manual. It's not that at all. It's really a lot that you can relate to in your life.
Well, I tried to teach in the process of having fun. And I tried to get, things that people could take away from it and actually learn from it. I was very careful in my research to have everything accurate. Mm-hmm. If I say that something happens or whatever, it actually could be true.
So what are you hoping your reader takes away from the book? Because you said that you were really passionate about really trying to teach without being preachy. So what is it you're hoping your book allows the reader to walk away with?
Well, I want them to look at Jed and realize that, you know, and this isn't really Jed, but it's as close as we could come. I want them to realize that a young man can be put into a situation that he has no control over and still be able to hold his values and live his values. And at the same time, even though they're in a situation when two people are in a position like that, one of the two things is going to happen. Either they're going to fall in love or they're going to hate each other. Well, they fall in love. And that brings a total different dynamic in it. And I wanted him to be able to demonstrate that even in a situation like that, he can maintain his values and he can keep it proper and keep it clean. And when he meets Charles, Lizzie's father, when they are rescued, he's able to look him in the eye and tell him that he took care of his girl.
Wonderful.
And so that I wanted to demonstrate that we make choices. And if we take the proper choice and live what we believe, then things process. Now, does that mean every time somebody's going to get rescued? No, it doesn't. I'm not trying to say that. But how you live your life, how you make choices, and what you do with those choices determines your future. And so, while this doesn't get into the future, it demonstrates that they have a very solid basis for going on.
Right.
One reader wrote me and told me that she said, I managed to write a love story without making it a romance. I thought that was pretty good.
That is great. Well, Jerry, I think your book is fabulous. And why don't you tell everyone where they can find your book, on your website, on Amazon, any bookstores, they can actually order it there as well. What is your website?
My website is www.jlcallison, and that's spelled CALLISON.com. And if you order off of my website, I sign every copy that I send out. Or you can get it from Amazon or Barnes and Noble online, any Porter's online, any place online. In fact, I was doing a little research this weekend for a friend in Australia who wants a copy. And it's available in Australia, it's in Japan, it's in India, it's in the UK and Europe. So you can get it any place in the world.
Right, exactly. And of course, there's always the Kindle versions available too.
Right.
So, Jerry, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your book and a part of you. And I encourage all the viewers here to go out and order your copy of Show Me Your Book Again.
Yeah, sure thing.
There you go. Stranded. And it's a really wonderful read, and I know you'll enjoy it. So thanks, Jerry, and much success to you.
Well, thank you so much. And let me say, go out and buy Cynthia's book, Powerful Beyond Measure. That is well worth your time as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. That was very sweet of you. Okay, until next week, take care, and another great read. Go out and order your copy.